Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, she meets with the guy who has a chain and a gray shirt, male feminist, who was next. And, well, he complains a lot about the patriarchy and comes off very bizarrely, in my opinion. And he talked about spending power and then women being put to do the grocery shopping. And I thought that was a really weird, like, oh, you're oppressed because you have to do the grocery shopping. And it's like, what are you talking about? I would argue that a lot of couples now go together. It's mixed. And it's actually quite relaxing to go to the grocery store, in my opinion. I like meal prepping and deciding what ingredients I'm going to do. And the children are with us and we make it wonderful. It's like a whole family thing. So I don't really see how you are somehow oppressed because you have access to food and have the money to buy that food, and you have the luxury of having items from all over the world. If you recall, I used to do like these Thankful Friday, and I've done a lot of different types of posts where I just talk about gratitude. And this male feminist really highlights the fact that a lot of first world feminists, male and female, they try to find oppression in everything. There are countless women right now who are starving. You think about Palestine. They don't have the ability to go into Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, different supermarkets, and decide, maybe I want to have this pasta sauce over that one. Or I'm going to get these eggs. Or, today there's an excellent selection of seafood, so I'm going to make some sockeye salmon instead of sea bass. The wonderful privilege it is to have stability and security and access to gourmet items and imported items is something that you should always feel thankful for. And if you feel oppressed grocery shopping, guess what? You literally can do Instacart. Instacart is a program, it's an app where you just pick a store. DoorDash also has this as well. And you can get groceries and someone can go pick it up for you because you're so lazy. Okay? So you're not oppressed. If you're on your phone, sitting on your couch, beep, 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 give that person a tip, your groceries arrive. You're not oppressed. Okay? But it's bothersome that somebody could look at the American supermarket with things from China, Mexico, Japan, France, Italy, tons of imported goods, and be like, oh, I'm so oppressed because I gotta get in my car with air conditioning, and I gotta go to the store, and I have a shopping cart, and everyone's polite and nice, and oh, there's even a kiosk cashier if I don't want to talk to a human. It's like, come on, get it together, my guy. Now, he points out that there's disparities in men and women CEOs, and Candace points out that the disparity actually just highlights different interests that are innate in men and women. And I think a lot of women glorify CEO positions because Hollywood makes it seem like you're gonna kick back in your Prada heels and your Meryl Streep boss bitch Hillary Clinton suit, and you're gonna be able to snap your fingers and pretend you're a queen and not really have to do any daunting, boring work. That's pretty odd. Or you're gonna be like Shiv Roy in Succession, like your daddy made the whole company and you just have the right last name and you're gonna just do whatever you want and lounge about and don't really have to work. I mean, even Shiv Roy in Succession, who wanted to be CEO, she didn't want to go through the training program. Her dad told her, like, you should have to go through the training program. Logan Roy told her that, and she didn't want to. She was like, what? Why? Like, she just felt like, oh, I just know what to do with the company. And you can see, like, you're crazy, And it's fascinating how much Hollywood has made it seem to women like every day at work is going to be so wonderful. It's going to be enlightening, and that, being at home is nothing special. I mean, some of these women, they could marry a guy and they could have their own little homestead, farm stand. There's tons of things now you can do from home, and you can make your home as peaceful and enjoyable as possible. But you can't make the office really that way, because it's a different climate, you know, it's a different structure, it's a different atmosphere with a different purpose. And the whole walking on eggshells to appease everybody and climbing up that ladder and holding your seat and worrying about shareholder profits, it's quite bizarre. And the guy brought in another example of the differences in finances between men and women. And it's really quite strange how some people think there has to be equality in everything just based on your genitalia. That's really strange. That women are really, but just looking at this whole debate thus far, it's really quite clear that feminists really want to imitate men, and they don't value femininity, and they really put money and materialism over children, and male feminists are really cucked individuals. Really high heel licking weirdos. I don't know how someone can look at a male feminist and think masculinity, because it seems like they would want to coattail and ride off their woman. And if she wants to not work, I feel like a male feminist is going to be the first one to feel resentment that he has to level up and provide. Because when you get a patriarchal man, he's got that weight on his shoulders that he has to bust his ass and work. A male feminist is like, well, you're empowered, we're equal, so you can do it. They don't have the same grit and grind to go out and get things done. And I really think in the future there's going to be more and more women talking about what their life was like being married to a male feminist, and how miserable it would be. I couldn't imagine having such a weak, ineffectual male who has his hand out expecting a woman to pay bills and is too cowardly to tell her to, wash the dishes or do some vacuuming. It's just, the feminization of males by feminists is horrendous and bizarre. Truly, it is. Fadala bin Ubaid al-Ansari, may Allah be pleased with him, reported, I heard the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, say, happiness is due to him who is guided to Islam and possesses provision that suffices him for his day and remains content. At-Tirmidhi, Riyadh Salihin, Volume 1. The next person Candace talks to is really aggressive, yellow shirt feminist, and she throws out a lot of statistics that Jubilee didn't fact check. She said 81% of women have been essayed. And she really was focusing on our wording, okay? And I wish more women would also look at how many female teachers now are doing stuff with their male students, or female crimes in general. They're very hyper-focused on men, and she was trying to highlight male aggression. And as we know, men have testosterone. They're going to be a bit more aggressive. Just like women, when they do crimes, they do a different style of crimes. Men do raw aggression. Women do poisoning, mutilation, starvation. You see a lot of more cerebral crimes done by women than raw, straightforward, blunt force type of crimes that men do. Okay, but these facts that she didn't have any substantial evidence for that, and I find that to be quite troubling. Now, there's a camera that pans to a feminist that's reacting smugly when Candace says that a good chunk of men go and defend women in the country basically by being soldiers. And this feminist just kind of smirks, but that's the truth. We may not like certain soldiers for the wars they fight in, or cops, or paramedics, or firefighters, or security guards, but the majority of those fields are done by men, and they actually preserve some law and order. Not all of them, but some of them. And you can see her ingratitude coming in quite clearly by how that lady in the background didn't really appreciate just exactly what it is those soldiers do. And still, male soldiers, with there was an NPR study that showed when they had different platoons, different groups together of men and women, and then they had an all-male team, that the all-male team outperformed the mixed group. And we know that obviously men are going to be stronger than women in the military, and that very few women can meet the male standards, and they have to lower certain standards for women and create different standards because they're biologically different. And how do we also know that's true? Is because women right now are complaining about males, cross-dressing males, invading their sports. And I do use the militaristic term invasion in particular, because when you have people like Leah Thomas, that male swimmer, when you have males putting on just lipstick and growing their hair long and running track and totally taking over women's sports, and even when we see them doing, there was that pink-haired, the guy was a former soldier in the military. He grew his hair pink and went in the UFC and went and pummeled women. Even if occasionally some of these males lose, it doesn't take away the fact that their punching power is, and their stamina overall, their muscle density, their bone density, their lung capacity is going to be different than women. And this is why there's such a big protest with men entering women's domains, and why Trump was pushed by his MAGA base, by the women, to get these males out of female sports, okay? Because clearly there's a difference. So, male soldiers are going to be better at protecting and fighting than women naturally. Because if they weren't, then women wouldn't fear the sports arena. Because in the military, the wars are life and death. It isn't a game, and there's no guarantee you're going to survive. So you can't say women can do the same job and as good as men in the military through being killing machines, and then say, well, when it comes to volleyball, basketball, and running, that's where the real danger is. And that's where the gender differences come in, biologically. No, if women don't want to go up against men in boxing, kickboxing, taekwondo, karate, or jiu-jitsu, because they know they'll lose, why would they also then think that they can go up equally in military affairs? You know, hiding with your weapon behind a rock, it's not going to always be foolproof, because your enemy will come close to you. And men can run faster away from a drone than a woman. And you just really have to look. It doesn't matter how many exceptions to the rule you have. Like, oh, so-and-so soldier did this and she was a woman. Okay, good for her. But still, on average, men handle being soldiers better than women. And women are not necessarily built for that. And they're less strong physically. They can't push off a male soldier as easily. And they get R-worded in the military, even by other men. So it's quite dangerous for women to enter into the military, even within their own ranks, let alone an enemy rank who isn't going to take a lot of mercy on them. And so I thought it was fascinating how these women who live in a first world country where there's law and order, where there is plenty of people to fulfill security roles, somehow think that these men aren't doing protective roles. And it kind of shows you how a lot of feminists don't appreciate security. And if you recall, in the book review I did of The Sexual Revolution, that feminist, Lori Penny, also mocked men by saying, how are they providers and protectors? But then, if you follow the trend, you'll see whenever a man is attacking a woman, the feminists will say, where are all the real men at? Why didn't no men step up and help her? Well, wait a minute, you just said men are not the protectors, now you're wanting them to step in and protect. So make up your mind, which is it? Either women they're independent, they don't need no man. You know, why aren't you asking for a woman to step up and help if men and women have no biological differences in strength or in any type of fear tolerance? Why aren't you asking for that? Why is it, oh, why didn't the men step up? No, come on, you said men and women have no real differences, and a woman can do anything a man can do but better. Okay then, as for a female cop. And if you've seen tons of female police officers, they're fat and out of shape. They can't even hold on to a drunk male who's being insubordinate. And they have to have someone help them. This is a very funny case of just how many times one female cop can't hold on to a male, and they always shoot the male person. And if you love your husband, he gets pulled over, you know that a female officer is more trigger happy than a male one, because she's riddled with fear. She's incompetent. She shouldn't be a police officer at all. You know, she should not be in that field whatsoever. So there's clear differences between male security roles and female security roles, and women are not very good at security overall in any arena whatsoever. Okay, no matter how much testosterone they're injecting, you know, it's not going to really add up. And when women take testosterone, they become more aggressive and more insane because it's not natural to their body, and it throws off their entire biochemistry. Okay, their entire biological senses totally out of whack, because it is completely unnatural for women to be injecting testosterone into their body that mad scientists have allowed because of the rainbow mafia. And so Yellow Shirt just really has a vendetta against men, and she's aggressive, and she tries to argue as well that there's a lot of social pressures put on women to put career first. And I think it's fascinating how so many feminists deny that, because when you hit high school, colleges are already like, hey, come to our school and go into all this debt. And then when the women are in debt, they play victim. No one forced you to take out the loan. Oh, but you told us if we went, we would get all this money. Okay, but no one forced you. You had free will. But I'm a victim. Okay, make up your mind. Can you make your own independent decisions, or are you a brainwashed sheep and you can't be fiscally responsible? Which is it? So, whatever is convenient to be a victim, but simultaneously being empowered, is a lot what feminists do. And so even though there's male aggression, that doesn't therefore mean that there's a patriarchal system that protects male aggression against women. Because I would also argue that when you investigate the abuse by female nurses upon the elderly, upon animals, upon newborns, you really begin to see just how wicked some women are. And this is why I focus a lot on female crimes, is because we have to show the truth, and feminists I've never really seen them post about crimes committed by women. They'll just call everyone a pick-me-sha. That's what they'll do. But they don't really talk about female aggression in its pernicious and vicious forms. So her whole male aggression point is, yeah, males have to be aggressive, but they have to also learn where to channel that, how to manage it, and that's where fathers come in. See, I would have told that feminist that, like, hey, you don't like the men misapplying their aggression? Well, this is why fathers matter. But a feminist will say, I don't need no man. I can raise a kid all on my own. My son's fine. He don't need this. He don't need that. He can have me. They think they can be mom and dad. And when the son doesn't really know how to process his transition into manhood through puberty, and he's feeling awkward, and he gets into these weird incel groups, and he starts to have weird antisocial behaviors that require a male guide, feminists really just deny that fathers matter at all. You know, they think that they're goddesses, that they can do whatever they want, and there'll be no negative consequences to having no healthy patriarchal men around. They want male feminists around who just kind of lick the heels of feminists like they're dominatrix twinks. Now, she also claimed that only 7% of R-worders go to jail. Now, this is where this is another brilliant thing about Islam, is disencouraging free mixing between men and women. Men should not be in seclusion with non-mahram women, right, and vice versa, because just like with Joseph's situation, the woman cried R-wording, and that's an ancient example. So it's hard to prove what happened. And no, you cannot believe all women, because we know certain women will lie, okay? They will change after the fact. And a lot of women will get high, get drunk, and go to a party. They can actually falsely accuse the wrong guy, or they're vindictive and jealous and they accuse someone else. And the entire spectrum of those crimes, it gets really muddy, because there's been so many bad women who ruined it for actual victims that people think they're just crying wolf. And this creates a huge dilemma for everyone involved. But she was trying to assert that R-wording is practically illegal in the United States. I don't think so. I don't think so. If there's definitive evidence, like your tissue down there is torn up, there's DNA, and you go right after it happens and your face is all bruised up, that's very clear. Not everyone has those signs, but this is where feminists will tell you that you're evil if you tell women stop hanging out with men while you're drunk, while you're high. If you tell women stop hanging around men and expecting to be safe, they'll say, well, now you're oppressing women because you're not letting them be liberated and free. I don't walk into the forest where I know a bunch of bears are. I don't expect everyone to treat me safely. There's a hadith that says, don't expect to live for till tomorrow. I believe it's a hadith, or is it an ayat? Tomorrow is basically not promised to anyone. We know that as Muslims. None of us know when we're going to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? You, as a woman, shouldn't think, I'm going to go to a party with a bunch of men who I don't know, and I'm going to get lambasted, and I'm just going to pass out and expect no one to touch me. Sure, maybe that happened 17 times, but you have no guarantee it's going to happen the 18th time. And why do you have such irresponsible regard for your life? Why do you not have more common sense? But if you tell women to have more common sense, then they say you're enabling R-word culture. It don't make no sense. So, a woman does something stupid, she should have known better, you tell her to do better, she says you're victim blaming, and she doesn't want to change that, she wants to continue to engage in that risky behavior, then you're like, well, then you're asking for it, because you're not trying to practice any type of precaution. Like, you don't go to certain neighborhoods at 2 a.m. wearing a bunch of gold and then expect not to get robbed. So, when Islam tells women, don't use intoxicants, don't free mix, don't go to these types of events, you can see the soundness in that. But this feminist who's arguing with Candace clearly doesn't get that type of memo. It's almost like an animal, like a wildebeest, has more common sense than this chick. Because when you're seeing the crocodiles in the river, the wildebeest knows to move differently and will jump and leap and go across to avoid the crocodile. This chick is like, if she was a wildebeest, she would just walk right in front and be like, you shouldn't bite me because I'm a female wildebeest. The crocodile is like, well, I'm going to eat you. Evil exists, and you have a duty to be smart and survive. This planet is a difficult planet. This planet, baby little sea turtles hatch from their egg, they gotta go swim. Those giant whales, they give birth, they don't have, very much ability to fight off orcas. A little pack of orcas come, they beat up the baby whale, and they eat its liver and leave it there. And now the mom has to make her migration without her baby. How much work she had to do to find a mate, to get pregnant, give birth to that baby whale, try to make it to their feeding grounds, and a pack of orcas just come along and eat the baby. And there's a breed of sharks, what is it, the sand shark? I'm skipping on the name. When the eggs hatch, they all eat each other and only one or two remain. Think about that. They're inside their mom, they're all eating and fighting each other, and they've discovered this through cameras that they put inside the sharks. It's a pretty brutal existence for so many creatures on this planet. And it's surprising that feminists think that you should be able to get totally intoxicated, hammered, and not have to have any type of precaution. It's strange to me. And if you say, Islam encourages women to have a chaperone, not to travel alone. Oh, you're oppressing me. Okay, then be a dumb cunt and walk alone, and if something happens to you, don't blame nobody but yourself. Okay? You're an idiot. Meanwhile, female celebrities, you catch them with a bunch of people. With like an entourage of security guards. But feminists think that poor girls, they don't deserve to be protected by their fathers, their brothers, and that the male family members shouldn't be obliged, they shouldn't be obligated, they shouldn't be enforced and encouraged to take out their female relatives in the community and make sure that they're safe. It's really quite ridiculous. They want to be so independent to the point where they are ripe for the picking. Certain animals, zebras, they have power in numbers. Their camouflage, the way that the black and white lines go. The lion's like, where is it? Water buffalo. They're in a group. You go after the baby, the water buffalo will turn, and then they'll ram the lion. Okay? There are ants. If you think about how those ants, they operate in large numbers. So some animals are great in a solitary way, like the great white shark, bald eagle, certain golden eagles, you name it. But other birds, they operate well in a group, and they help to alert each other. Predator birds versus birds who escape. And so when you look at the human world, you kind of get a mix of that, where women should be in groups, and they should have a male guardian. And even Khabib, the MMA fighter from Dagestan, when he travels, he has a group of people as well. You should have a companion when you travel, as much as you can. I know it's not always possible, especially for moms, because, so many broken families. You don't always have that ability, but it's a great thing to have. And for a woman to be with her husband, her brother, her father, her cousin, somebody who's permissible, that's a great thing. And this feminist doesn't seem to really acknowledge that. If you want to cut down on male aggression, you need a male guardian, because a woman cannot fight off a male aggressor very well. If that was the case, then so many women wouldn't be victims of R-wording in the first place, because they'd be able to fight off their opponent. Okay? And hopefully more feminists stop saying defund the police. They say defund the police, ban the Second Amendment. Okay, now you've taken away those two options that help women be safe when they travel alone. What is wrong with you? And a lot of feminists are liberals and progressives and Democrats and leftists, and they want to have safe injection sites. Safe. So that means there'll be a spot where males and women, but males, can go and get high, waddle out, and then hallucinate on crystal meth, and then or crocodile or flocka or fentanyl, and just harm somebody. So women will vote for drug sites, these feminists. They'll vote to legalize, tax and regulate all drugs, defund the police, which means less police and less resources, less cops on a beat, to take away gun rights, okay, and make it to where women can't carry knives and only can carry pepper spray, when pepper spray has been shown to not always reduce a man coming at you or a woman. Okay, now and then the feminists say don't have a male chaperone. Who are you to shame women for using drugs and going out and having a good time? Don't tell women that they can't be out at night. Okay, look how they put their own selves in danger. You put your own selves in danger. No common sense, no self-preservation at all. It's really quite strange. It's like a bird that plucks out its own feathers and then gets mad when it can't fly when the predator comes. That's pretty much what a feminist is. This one in particular, at least. So, male aggression has to be guided and fortified and utilized in a proper manner, not eradicated through estrogen means. So some feminists think, if you just put stuff in the water, force medication on men, this will reduce their aggression and make everyone safer. No, that'll make us all less safer, because we need strong men to protect us from, wicked women. If you're with your husband, he's strong, he can fight off 2 women for you, 3 women, he can help you. You can just give them a hard knock to the nose, just boom, 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 and fall them down like dominoes. Whereas if they get you by the hair and you're like trying to scruff, it's more equal. Whereas if you have your husband helping you, the odds are in your favor, not their favor. And tons of women will lash out and harm other women. I mean, Waffle Houses, malls, bars, gas stations. Women love beating on each other. So it's important to have a male guardian, because women can't step up and win against a man as easy as they can another woman. And so it's essential. It's important to tell women, essentially, don't get around these men. Stop hanging out. Stop getting alone in cars with men. Stop meeting men on apps and hooking up with them. After about 24 hours, the third day you're hooking up. You're giving them access to your body. You're doing a lot of shady stuff. Be smarter. Have your dad involved. Meet your parents. Let's go back to the old school way. Oh, we're going back 1,000 years. Oh, this is barbaric. This is Stone Age crap. Then you're not going to really conquer evil. Because Islam has great ways to prevent, as much as we possibly can, women from being victims of bad men and bad women. And protects men from evil women who will cry wolf and will use R-wording as a form of a political tool. And if you look at Keanu Reeves, when he takes pictures with fans, he doesn't touch them. He just puts the arm away. And Mike Pence, he won't be alone in the office with women. I believe he leaves the door open. He really respects his wife. He tries to really make sure that he can't get a false allegation. Okay? So, it's really smart for him to do that. So more and more men are waking up to how dangerous it is for them to be alone with women. How women will use, fake cries, and how women must also be safer around men and stop thinking they live in Disneyland and that everyone gotta babysit them while they're drunk, and that you should operate in this planet with more caution and more awareness. But man, try telling that to this feminist who just has mad attitude and thinks R-wording is practically legal. It's insane. So protect yourselves, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, and may Allah guide us, because we need guidance, and none of us can succeed unless we have Islam. So please like, comment, subscribe, share, join the blog. Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As, may Allah be pleased with him, reported, Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, said, successful is the one who enters the fold of Islam and is provided with sustenance which is sufficient for his day's needs, and Allah makes him content with what He has bestowed upon him. Muslim, Riyadh Salihin, Volume 1. Now, the dress lady, Jenny, I believe her name was, the Asian woman, she and Candace had a discussion. It was kind of short. I really wish they would have gone into the nitty-gritty of it. But Candace mentioned how having sex for free, hookup culture, that it benefits men the most because they get easy access to women without having to put in much effort. But the feminist rebutted, essentially, and mentioned, well, it's not for free because they're making money. So here you get into, again, this wonderful paradox that doesn't seem to go away, but it does provide lots of mental stimulation. Free as in, the men don't have to really be chivalrous and give you a better life. They don't have to do a lot in order to get in your pants. You just have to be a little bit flirtatious, give you a blunt or a cocktail, and open up. You're so empowered. And then it's harder to get those men to commit with the overabundance. See, what's really interesting is how many sexually liberated feminists don't really acknowledge how, if you have a row, like 12 women, each one has an aspect of beauty, and all of them are totally willing to have intimacy with a guy, him picking one, and while the others are like fawning over him, it's going to be hard for him just to remain with that one woman, right? But if all those women make him work for it, like they have to be chivalrous, they got to meet their parents, there's got to be a wedding first, he's going to take a moment and say, okay, who do I really want? Not just who do I want to clap cheeks with, wham bam thank you ma'am, and skedaddle on. And this is something that's quite common. You know, there was one time I was working, and I had this revelation in my head about how men can approach you for a date, and they have this attitude where it's like they expect you to say yes because everyone says yes. And it's really quite puzzling. And when women go on dates, there's this energy of, well, I better get sex after. By the third date, men expect sex. Now, that's pretty crazy. Because 1 in 5 Americans has an STD. That's a huge gamble. Like, it is such a gamble to... And, I mean, it's just shocking, really. With the amount of women who give it up fast and easy with no strings, no work ethic, it's harder to get men to want to commit, to want to wait. This makes it actually harder for the good girls. Because women who don't have daughters and who aren't raising them to be good, they don't give you crap. They're harlots. The harlots are going to jump on any guy they can get it from, whether he's married or whatever. They're just going to go on out and do whatever they want to do. But if you have daughters and you want them to be virgins on their wedding day, it's quite scary looking at how many Andrew Tates and John Zerkas there are in the world. The Troy Francis, these degenerates, they think that, no, I don't have to wait for you because I got 25 other women who are more attractive who are going to give it to me really easy. This puts the good girls at a disadvantage. So you have to protect your daughters from falling for the harlot's propaganda. Like, no. Stay pure to your wedding day. That's a wonderful, valuable thing. You have to constantly go to battle with the feminists who are like, no, just give it up. It's nothing special. Your virginity is nothing special at all, and you need to get experience by getting railed by one man from every country, whatever weird fetish stuff they get into. You have to think, whoa, I don't want this person around my daughter. You're a negative influence. We used to have the social stigma around the town hood rat. But now, because of Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, Sexy Red, Ice Spice, Glorilla, female rappers for a huge part, and weirdos like Lady Gaga and Madonna, this has created a weirder environment where a man simply needs to take you out to eat and he can get it. It's really odd. Now, I have heard some Shira 7 gold diggers say, he has to buy you perfume and a fancy bag and then you put out. But at the end of the day, you're putting out for a freaking purse. But you feel like you're special because the purse is expensive, but it's a purse. And when you see the commodification of sex, it's really quite disgusting because it takes away the spiritual nature of the act in itself. There are doigts we say before we engage in those relations with our lovers, our husbands, so that the shaitan is kept away. The spiritual nature of intimacy, the risk of disease, the functionality for reproduction, all gets thrown out the window, and it just becomes this raw exchange of emotions. We are very porn-brained in our society because of the sexual revolutionary feminists. And to be fair, the rad femmes, many of them are against sex work. It's the liberal, genderqueer feminists who, they support that. So there is a split in that philosophy. The philosophy of feminism that depends on what faction you're in, how they view adult entertainment, okay? Others say it objectifies women because it keeps them in a position of subservience to male beauty types and male roles and degrades them. Others say that because women are making money, it's okay. And we saw Andrew Tate has the male feminist view. In his interview with Bonnie Blue that I covered, check that out, he literally told her she was smart for not being tricked into giving it away for free. Now, in Islam, prostitution is haram. Zina, illicit sexual activity, haram. Okay? But Tate doesn't fear Allah. He's promoting haram. He is a degenerate himself. He trained women to do that work. And he is absolutely repulsive. So, Andrew Tate claims to not like feminists, but he has the male feminist perspective of sex work is empowering, and if you make money, it's okay, because he's more materialist than spiritual. Okay? And he said this before with countless women. Okay? And it was how he got his first million. So, don't try to rewrite history just because you like his, crypto grifting and his attitude and whatnot. You can't erase what he said, and he hasn't repented from that because he still promotes that. So, Candace has a point, but Candace is also friends with Kanye West and Andrew Tate. Two individuals who, their women are lewd. They hook up with occultic lewd women. They both produced adult content. Kanye West is absolutely insane. He admitted to doing incestuous, underage, homosexual activities. And he did that horrible stunt with having his wife, his ex-wife now, I believe they've gotten a divorce, take off her coat and she was completely nude underneath. So he's really into cuckoldry. I shared the screenshots of the videos on X where Kanye West and Sneeko were talking about how much they get excited with cuckoldry. And Sneeko didn't realize they were recording and he stopped recording, but we all saw that. And the two videos I did called, is Sneeko going to be part of the Kanye West cult? Just type in Sneeko on the channel and you should see those videos. But it is quite clear that Kanye West is into cuckoldry, which is, cucks in Islam go to hell. They're not seen, the youths, they're not seen as good men or valuable men, and cucks are very dangerous for society. And they serve the feminist agenda, the dominatrix feminist agenda, to be exact. So, I applaud Candace for wanting women to do better, to hold out till their marriage day, but she should take a good hard look at how she criticizes women like Cardi B and whatnot harder than her male counterparts. And some have speculated that's because her husband is friends with Andrew Tate. I don't know why the hell you would want to have your husbands be friends with a pimp. I think that would be very awkward. Knowing that your husband need to only pick up the phone and he could have a big titty bimbo to service his needs while you're out with the children and you would never know. That having a husband who has easy access to whores is quite unnerving and awkward. And he's supposed to be a Christian. I don't know why a Christian would want to be friends with a pimp. I don't know why. That's like, a pimp is on the same level as a cartel member in the end, because whores and drugs go together really easy. And once you start to get around that swamp, it's all mossy from there. So maybe she should take a hard look at changing up the men that she defends, because you can't shame the women for participating in adult content and then platform Kanye West and Andrew Tate and defend them from women who are critiquing them for how they treat women and what they promote to young men. Andrew Tate literally has a pimp and hose degree. He's tried to rewrite his history many times, which is a very occultic thing. He speaks out of both sides of his mouth and he repeats the same thing over and over as a form of rhetorical magic to try to erase what it is he's done. But we all know what he's done. He's just trying to, do cover-up now. And he really got exposed in that Bonnie Blue interview for being disgusting. So Candace complains that sex for free is because of feminism. Well, Andrew Tate, he's telling women to get paid. So even if you get paid, you're still giving sex away for free, marriage free. Islam tells women, no, you get married, then you can have fun. That's what you should do. You shouldn't give up the goods beforehand. This will make men actually have to compete, strive, and do better. But there's an expression called hoflation, where men realize these women have had 20, 30, 40 men. They won't cook, they won't clean, but they demand a ring, and that the good guy wait, whereas they gave it up real fast to a guy who didn't even give them, a burrito. So why should a good man have to wait for a woman who blows dudes in the bathrooms at clubs? And they have a good point there, where there's so many women who've given it up really easy that making a man wait for somebody like that, it shows that they're not really being fair. So you're like, how do you change that system? But either way, we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So instead of going for that chick who has 20 body count, 30 body count, and she gave it up on the first night, she gave it up by the third date, go after a good woman, but be worthy of that woman. See, if you help make whores, I don't believe you're entitled to a virgin. Virgins are for quality, honorable men. Doesn't mean the male needs to be a virgin. He could be a divorcee. He could have other wives. But what it does mean is that he is not like John Zerka and Myron Gaines and Andrew Tate, who brag about having had many women. Protect your health. So hookup culture is a product of feminism. But there are male feminists and female feminists who have contributed to that, and Islam has a solution. The best solution, in my opinion. Okay? So they voted her out before they could really get into the nitty-gritty of that. And it would have been nice to see them go at it. But they didn't. So this will be the final video, because I've already done quite a lot of analysis on the debate overall. But I do enjoy seeing Candace maintain her cool, not be railroaded, and to hold, 10 toes down against feminists who really try to get under your skin and unnerve you. And hopefully we all walk away thinking about how we can do better and be better. But Candace was talking to a gray sweater guy before this Jenny lady, and was talking about maternity leave, and it doesn't seem like she was very pro maternity leave because it would raise taxes, and I kind of found that to be a little bit odd. And she didn't seem in favor of paternity leave, where a dad gets time off, because it would raise too much money on small businesses to know where to afford that, because they wouldn't be at work. And I felt like that was kind of sad, because Candace married a rich guy and she has money. And I remember when I had my first child, I really needed help, and I didn't have anyone to help me at all, and I only had my husband, and I wanted him to stay home more. And with my second child, I had a C-section, and that was very hard. I needed help, didn't have it, and he had to go back to work. So I think Candace forgets that not everyone can afford a night nurse. Not everyone has families who care, or friends who are willing to do that. So having your husband be there and not losing money because, rent and bills and everything, health insurance is so high. I really do think we have to improve that. Maternity care and paternity care. So hopefully Candace can change her heart on that. But I get that she's loathsome of taxes being raised, but Trump just increased funding in his big beautiful bill for ICE. He increased it to one of the largest amounts in American history. So we can afford that, but we can't afford for dads to be able to stay home and help their wife. And then people complain about the population decline. Women need help. They really do. With broken homes and with selfish boomer generations and, the lack of that cultural unit, that tribal unit that we used to have in the past, women are left with less and less and less options for help. So I was a little disappointed to hear Candace talk like that because, she has a nanny, she has family, her husband has a network of people he could call upon, whereas women like me, we don't have any of that. We literally need our husband's help. And C-sections are a major surgery and extremely painful, and you have to be so careful, and you don't want your stitches to rip. And if you have other children who need to be tended to, and you're sleep deprived, you're going to start to go insane. And so we need moms to have the help that they desire and demand. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help all the mothers who are struggling. Feminism is an abhorrent philosophy, in my opinion, a terrible movement, and I understand that the red pill nonsense and the feminist nonsense are the same side of a different coin, in my opinion, with how they damage the genders against each other and are both disgusting. But Islam is the medication America needs. So let me know what you thought about the whole debate, and maybe some insights you have that I didn't pick up on. But overall, the debate hints at money over children, titles over children, credentialism over children, fear of depending on a man, the rejection of trusting men, and you just see a lot of fear. What I got from this is there's a lot of fear. Women fear men giving up on them. So, giving up on the relationship and then being stuck in poverty. So, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal their hearts. Please like, comment, subscribe, join the blog. Surah 2 Al-Baqarah, Ayat 268. Satan threatens you with poverty and orders you to immorality, while Allah promises you forgiveness from Him and bounty, and Allah is all-encompassing and knowing. Surah 17 Al-Isra, Ayat number 31. And do not kill your children for fear of poverty. We provide for them and for you. Indeed, their killing is ever a great sin.